Good evening and welcome to the Pittsburgh Public Schools Education Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. My name is Tracy Reed and I am Chair of the Education Committee. Tonight we have one item on the agenda, a goal monitoring conversation on third grade math achievement. So I'll turn things over to Dr. Walters.
Thank you, Dr. Reed, and good evening, everyone. As stated, I'm Dr. Wayne Walters, proud superintendent of the Pittsburgh Public Schools, and I am here with members of our leadership team and Lindsay Smith, our new Executive Director, K-12 STEM. Thank you for being here for tonight's Education Committee presentation. This is our 7th monthly public conversation where we share how we are tracking our progress toward our defined goals. Tonight, we are revisiting third grade mathematics and providing a status update. We want to be clear about how we're doing and where we can do better to help all our students succeed. For those who are new to our public goal monitoring conversation space, one of the established goals was to focus on third grade mathematics proficiency. In third grade, students use mathematical models and strategies to solve multi-step problems, and literacy and mathematics work together to build competence, confidence, and a positive math identity. This grade is crucial for applying mathematical concepts in real-world settings, and here in the Pittsburgh Public Schools, we're focused on closing math gaps in all of our students, but especially for our African American students, students learning English, known as English language learners, economically disadvantaged students, and students with special learning needs, known as students with IEPs. We continue to stay the course with our established goal, which is by the end of the 24-25 school year, we want 33.3% of our third graders to be proficient on math state assessments. And to help us see where we are and where we need to go to support attainment of this goal, we use a key assessment called the Classroom Diagnostic Tool, or the CDT. And the CDT gives us insights throughout the year so we can support students who are struggling early on. As was shared in January of 2025, 39.9% of our students who were third graders last year were proficient in math on state assessments. Last year, our goal was for 30.3% of our students to be proficient, and we surpassed that. In fact, we surpassed our goal in 2022, 2023, and 2024, and we're working to keep progressing in the right direction. The data also showed us which subgroups need more attention, and while our white students have made gains, our African American students and English language learners have shown declines. This gap highlighted our need to focus on strategies that support each subgroup with creating success. And as we continue to delve deeper and discuss our goal of increasing third grade mathematics proficiency, it is important to revisit one of the most significant shifts we made to support this work: the adoption of new instructional materials for mathematics. As previously shared, we used GoMath, which centered more on direct instruction and repetitive practice in the past. And this year, we adopted Illustrative Mathematics, a high-quality, standards-aligned resource designed to foster conceptual understanding, mathematical discourse, and real-world problem-solving. Additionally, Illustrative Mathematics, based on national expertise, met the demand for two critical elements of expected mathematics instruction: focus and coherence, and rigor and mathematical practices compared to GoMath. We want students not only to know math, but to understand it deeply, to persevere when it gets hard, and to see themselves as capable mathematicians. Let's take a closer look at the CDT results of this year's third graders. As a reminder, the CDT test is given 3 times a year to measure key math skills, At this point, we have completed all 3 administrations of the Math CDT, and students have completed the PSSAs, which are our state assessments. And we will not get the results back until the beginning of the 25-26 school year. Regarding the chart, the red range that you see is the percentage of students not performing at or above grade level. So when you subtract that amount from 100, you get the difference, which is the percentage of students at or above grade level. And the percentage of students likely proficient or advanced is calculated by the sum of the green above midpoint and the blue range. The 3rd administration of the Math CDT, which is in the bottom row, shows that 21.5% of 3rd grade students are performing at or above grade level. This represents a 9.1 percentage point increase from the winter administration, where 12.4% of students were on or above grade level. While we're encouraged by the growth, we know more work remains to reach all of our students. And so let's take a look at the disaggregated CDT data by subgroup. And so we're seeing growth for both Black and white students. And from the 2nd administration of the CDT that took place in the winter to the 3rd administration that took place in the spring, Black students, which are highlighted in the light blue rows, demonstrated a 4.5 percentage point increase in those performing at or above grade level. For white students, in the light yellow rows, the growth was more pronounced, 14.2 percentage points. And despite this progress, disparities remain. In the spring administration, 91.4% of Black students remained in the red range, meaning they were not yet performing on grade level. And for white students, that number was significantly lower at 57.9%. We also disaggregated data for students with IEPs, English language learners, and economically disadvantaged students. These groups represent a significant portion of our population and require specific supports to thrive. From winter to spring, we saw a 4 percentage point gain for students with IEPs in the pink rows, a 9 percentage point gain for our English language learners in the light blue rows, and a 5.3 percentage point gain among economically disadvantaged students in the light green rows. Now let's take a moment to evaluate what the year-to-year data is telling us about our trajectory. As we zoom out to examine trends over the last 3 school years, we notice modest declines that offer important context. This spring, 8.0% of our students scored likely proficient or advanced on the CDT, down from 9.1% last year and 11.4% the year before. Similarly, the percentage of students performing on grade level dropped from 21.5% from 23.1% in the 23-24 school year and 24.2% in the 22-23 school year. And while these declines are modest, they're not insignificant. They highlight the importance of staying the course with intentionality, urgency, and a deep commitment to continuous learning and support. Even with these dips, we remain on pace to exceed our annual goal. Our work is stable, and we're using what we've learned to course correct in real time to maximize growth for every child. It is also important to note how this year's shift to new instructional materials, specifically illustrative mathematics, may have affected the data. As with any major shift in instructional practice, the first year of implementation brings significant challenges, not just for students, but also for teachers and school leaders. Learning a new curriculum, adjusting to unfamiliar pedagogical routines, and building the systems necessary to support that shift takes time, effort, and patience. We know that this transition was hard. In fact, during the first year, it's not uncommon for students to struggle or even see temporary dips in scores. And that's because this curriculum is fundamentally different. It asks students to do more than memorize steps. It asks them to build and solve real problems, to explain their thinking, collaborate with peers, and build a deep conceptual understanding of mathematics. And these are critical skills, not just for standardized tests, but for life. We also recognize that many educators were more comfortable with our previous curriculum. Go Math, which relied heavily on direct instruction and practice, was something that was favored. And shifting to a student-centered, problem-based models can feel like learning how to teach all over again. But we believe this change is necessary and better for our students in the long run. We're committed to supporting our educators with the training tools and coaching they need to grow in this work. And while these transitional challenges likely contributed to some of the disparities we've seen in the data this year, we remain encouraged by the foundation we've built and confident in the direction we're heading. Sticking with illustrative mathematics now, despite the initial discomfort, will help ensure that our students become stronger mathematicians and more thoughtful problem solvers in the years to come. To support our third grade math goal, we committed to a continuous improvement approach grounded in the Plan, Do, Check, Act model, commonly known as PDCA. And PDCA allows us to plan intentionally, implement thoughtfully, examine results with precision, and act responsively. It is a disciplined way of staying focused on what matters most, which are student outcomes. This model has allowed our teams to not only monitor progress, but to reflect on impact and make timely adjustments. It ensures that every step we take is informed by data, responsive to need, and designed to foster equity and excellence across our system. Our goal is not just to implement strategies, but to embed a mindset of continuous growth and reflection, because that is how sustainable progress is made. To jog your memory regarding our third grade goal, we employed 3 key strategies to create or increase proficiency. These strategies were designed to work together, creating a comprehensive and a cohesive approach to improving student outcomes, and each strategy operates as one gear while working in tandem, and they ensure that the strategies employed operate as a well-oiled machine. The first strategy was to focus on building positive math identity, ensuring that every student, especially those who are struggling, felt connected to math and could see themselves as a math learner or math person. The second strategy focused on curriculum-based professional learning, ensuring teachers and school leaders have the necessary skills to effectively implement the district's new problem-based mathematics materials. And finally, the third strategy focused on math language routines. And since our initial presentation to the board in January of 2025, we've been implementing a structured, data-informed approach to improving math outcomes for our third grade students. And this timeline outlines the key initiatives we put in place to drive progress. The blue rectangles represent inputs that align with our first strategy on building positive math identity. The gray rectangles represent the inputs that align with our second strategy on curriculum-based professional learning. The mustard-colored, burnt orange, whatever color you want to call it, rectangles represent the input aligned with our third strategy on math language routines. And you'll also notice that many rectangles are multicolored. And this signifies that these inputs were intentionally designed to advance more than one strategy at a time, reinforcing our commitment for coherence across the work. A few highlights from this timeline include the January Leading and Learning Institute for Principals, which focused on curriculum-based professional learning to support strong instructional leadership in mathematics. On January 26th, we held a district-wide professional learning day where we officially rolled out these strategies to teachers and began embedding them into instructional practice. Throughout February and March, we continued our unit unpacking sessions, coaching cycles, and principal institutes, layering in math language routines and reinforcing positive math identity through resources like the Math Norm posters and other materials. In March, the administration of the end-of-year CDT gave us valuable insight into student progress, and in April, we expanded family engagement with the sharing of Family Math Night resources extending our math strategies beyond the school walls. Now let's take a closer look at our strategies. As strategy 1 is focused on fostering a strong, positive math identity in students. Key components of this strategy included creating and implementing universal math norms across all third-grade classrooms, providing mini lessons aligned with those norms, modeling identity-building strategies for teachers during professional learning sessions, and using student survey data to reflect on teaching practices and create inclusive learning environments. So here's what we've done so far to bring this strategy to life, our do section. In March, universal math norms were introduced during our third-grade unit unpacking sessions. These norms set clear expectations and helped to build classroom environments where all students feel a sense of belonging in mathematics. Many lessons aligned with the math norms were shared with teachers throughout the district's Schoology platform, which is our learning management system. These resources were modeled during professional learning to help teachers apply them with fidelity in their classrooms. We also administered a mid-year student survey to gather insight into students' experiences with math. And that feedback helped us understand how students are internalizing their learning environments. And our mathematics academic coaches delivered job-embedded support focused on cultivating inclusive classroom cultures. In addition, coordinators facilitated targeted professional learning for principals so they could better support teachers in this critical work. And so here's one example of how we brought this work to life visually. And so we've launched 5 district-wide math norms during our March professional learning sessions with poster distribution for all schools. These were created to set consistent expectations and reinforce a positive learning environment across all classrooms. And to support implementation, we provided ready-to-use mini lessons and posted them in Schoology on a specific curriculum page, making them easily accessible to teachers. Conversations around math identity have also been intentionally embedded into our professional learning and coaching. And these conversations help teachers reflect on how aspects of the environment and instruction support students in seeing themselves as capable math learners. As we implemented this strategy, we regularly checked our work, and in doing so, we identified both areas of growth and opportunities for improvement, which is our check section. And so Math Walks revealed encouraging signs. Third-grade teachers demonstrated the highest gains district-wide in cultivating a positive and inclusive classroom environment, rising from 29% at the start of the year to 66% mid-year. Survey results also showed a modest increase in math enjoyment, with 85% of third-grade students responding yes to the question, "Do you like math?" up from 82% at the beginning of the year. However, challenges remain. Despite strong professional learning, classroom implementation of identity-building strategies was inconsistent, and the survey itself used just one broad question, limiting our insight into the depth of students' math identities. And we also faced a drop in survey responses and lacked disaggregated demographic data, which hindered our ability to analyze growth for specific student subgroups. And so here's what we're doing next. This is the action that we're taking, the ACT portion. And so we're improving our survey tools to more accurately capture students' math identities and allow disaggregation by race and other demographics. And this will help us track our impact more clearly. The academic coaches will continue providing targeted support with an even stronger focus on inclusive instruction and identity development. And finally, school leaders will take a more active role in monitoring classroom implementation, while professional learning will further reinforce the connection between math identity and academic success. Strategy 2 is focused on professional learning that builds the capacity of our educators to implement the district's new problem-based math curriculum with clarity and confidence. Key components of this strategy included facilitating 3 professional learning sessions for principals in January and February to strengthen their ability to support curriculum implementation. We shifted third grade unit unpacking to district-wide half-days, which significantly boosted teacher participation. And we prioritized math coaching at the third level through job-embedded support and direct collaboration with teachers. So let's take a look at what we did do. So between January and February, we facilitated 3 curriculum-based professional learning for principals through our Leading and Learning Institutes. These sessions were designed to help school leaders support implementation with fidelity. To improve teacher access and participation, we shifted our third grade unit unpacking sessions from optional after-school meetings to scheduled district-wide half-days. This change significantly increased teacher attendance, and our 5 math coaches concentrated their time on third grade classrooms, providing embedded coaching, facilitating planning, and modeling lessons aligned with the new curriculum. We also expanded access to planning and instructional tools by curating a resource suite within the Schoology platform. And finally, we conducted mid-year math walks to assess how the curriculum was being implemented across classrooms. And so these visuals highlight our LLI, or Leading and Learning Institute sessions, that took place to ensure we're investing our time into principals. We delivered 3 curriculum-based professional learning sessions to principals during the January and February Leading and Learning Institutes, and these sessions focused on equipping principals with the tools and knowledge to lead implementation efforts in their buildings. By strengthening principal expertise, we're laying the groundwork for consistent and high-quality support for teachers, school by school. We also saw direct impact from shifting our professional learning format for teachers. By moving our unit unpacking sessions to district-wide half-days, we removed key barriers to participation. And as a result, we saw a significant increase in attendance during the final 4 sessions. This intentional shift helped ensure that more teachers had access to deep content learning and collaborative planning, 2 critical components of successful curriculum implementation. And in case you're wondering why some teachers may not have been available, is that all of our teachers are not, they don't only teach mathematics. Some may teach both, so some have to make a choice. As with all of our strategies, we checked progress and reflected on where we're growing and what needed adjustment, our check session. And so mid-year math walks showed clear improvement in the third grade. For example, the percentage of classrooms where students had time to share their math thinking grew from 32 to 71% based on observations focused on academic discussions by students. And the use of the curriculum's problem-based structure increased from 35% to 66% based on observations of lesson design and guidance that elevates problem solving as outlined in the curriculum. Additionally, 93% of coaching cycle goals were met by math coaches in collaboration with teachers. And teachers who engaged more deeply in professional learning consistently demonstrated stronger instructional practices. However, challenges still remain. Professional learning sessions and some math language routines had to be postponed due to competing district priorities. Specifically, 3 of 8 math language routine PD sessions were completed for principals, and 6 of 8 math language routine PD sessions were completed for teachers, with the 7th happening this Friday. And with just 5 math coaches supporting over 400 elementary teachers, each coach currently serves between 80 and 95 educators. And so that caseload makes it difficult to provide the individualized support many teachers need, particularly given the demands of learning a new curriculum. And so here's the action that we're taking to address this act. Moving forward, we have to find creative ways to systematically support all needs. Ensuring consistent and comprehensive support for both teachers and leaders is crucial to the improvement of teaching and learning. We'll continue to seek creative ways to maximize our current resources to meet the learning needs of our teachers and leaders. And we're also exploring opportunities that may arise through future school reconfiguration efforts. And these changes could allow us to expand our math coaching team, making it possible to provide the kind of sustained support that leads to long-term gains in student learning. Strategy 3 is centered on students' ability to understand and communicate mathematical thinking through math language routines, or MLRs. And as previously shared, math language routines develop mathematical language and reasoning skills alongside English language proficiency, as well as provide opportunities for students to communicate their thinking clearly and concisely, listen actively to others' ideas, and build on them, use precise mathematical languages to describe concepts and procedures, connect mathematical ideas to real-world context, and reason critically about mathematical problems and solutions. And so this strategy had three major components: designing and distributing visual models that explain the 8 MLRs, providing professional learning so that teachers feel confident facilitating these routines in the classroom, and engaging families, particularly through the 3 Reads routine, so that mathematical discourse extends into the home. And to bring this strategy to life, here's what we did, our do section. First, we designed and distributed classroom posters illustrating all 8 math language routines to every 3rd grade classroom in the district. These posters now serve as a daily reference for students and teachers alike. We delivered professional learning sessions to both teachers and principals, introducing and modeling the MLRs in ways that are directly aligned with the curriculum. And facilitation guides and ready-to-use slides were uploaded to Schoology to support continued learning during professional learning communities and team meetings. And to bring this learning home, we shared handouts and presentation materials with schools to support the use of MLRs, especially 3 Reads during the Family Math Night events. And here you see a visual component of our implementation strategy. Our graphic designer created 8 high-quality math language routine posters, each one visually illustrating a specific routine. These posters were printed and distributed to every 3rd grade math classroom across the district, ensuring that students have consistent exposure to these essential tools for mathematical thinking and communication. As we implemented the MLRs, we continuously assessed what was working and where we needed to adjust. And one challenge we encountered was time. While some routines were modeled during professional learning sessions, limited time meant that not all 8 MLRs were introduced in depth. Principal exposure to the full set of routines was also constrained by scheduling demands. And although resources were provided for family math nights, usage data is limited due to variation in school schedules and event timing. And so here's how we're moving forward to act to ensure that we can progress toward our goal. Recognizing the limited professional learning time, our focus will shift to strategically integrate math language routines within upcoming curriculum units during teacher professional learning and coaching sessions. We'll also resume principal learning on the routines as time permits, and for the 25-26 school year, we plan to introduce a more strategic process for sharing and tracking Family Math Night resources. This year's efforts have built a strong foundation, and we will continue to expand and deepen implementation in the months ahead. And so as I've shared in previous goal monitoring presentations, this is more than just sharing numbers. It's a commitment to a new way of governing our schools, focusing on transparency, accountability, and equity. We're working hard to adjust our practices based on the data, and we have and are doing everything we can to create a brighter future for each and every student in the Pittsburgh Public Schools. So I thank you, and I look forward to our conversation as we continue on this journey to improve the Pittsburgh Public Schools for all our students.
Thank you. Do we have any board members who are not in the room who have questions? I'm going to take that as a no. So feel free to raise your hands if you're online and you have a question. Do any of my colleagues in the room have questions? So, Ms. Wilson.
I have no question because it's very clear what was presented to us. And all I kept thinking about was me back in the classroom and what I was doing. But I just want to say, for those of you who are watching, you know, the job of a teacher is so complex. And I think what I was thinking was, this is great for math, it really is. But then I remember I'm still teaching reading and English, you know, depending on what you have and what your classroom is like. But I just want people to realize, you know, teaching isn't just opening up a book. It's very complex, and it's very direct what we need to do to make sure that kids learn. And once there was the American Federation of Teachers had put together research on reading, and they said that reading was rocket science. And I'm sitting here the whole time listening to this math presentation. Math is rocket science as well. So it's just kudos to all in our district who work so hard to make sure that our kids will continue to attain math and other subjects as well, but obviously particularly math, so that they don't just do answers by rote, but that they understand what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Ms. Silk?
Thank you. I'm pleased to see that our participation in professional learning has gone up and that we're seeing a connection between the professional learning, participation in professional learning, and what is happening in the classroom. So that's all really encouraging. Because these are public conversations, I was hoping that you could explain in lay people terms what you mean by fidelity of implementation, which you mentioned a couple of times, both around offering the mini lessons in Schoology and wanting to see that in instruction, and also around, you used that phrase around supports for school leaders.
So, thank you for that question, Ms. Silk. So I would say fidelity simply means following the rules. There's a structure that's defined, there are expectations that are printed and support that's given, and fidelity means taking the challenge of actually trying to implement as prescribed. I know there are a lot of times when, you know, people may have opinions about best approaches, but it's very hard to speak to if instructional materials are making impact when you just decide to go on your own path and not follow the rules. So when we speak to fidelity, we're talking about following the rules as outlined in the instructional materials and our curriculum documents.
Thank you. And my last question was just hoping that you could share a little bit more about how reconfiguring the district would help with our third grade math goal. I think you brought that up around the second strategy in particular.
Sure. So it would help because, of course, we would have less schools, but more importantly, our academic coaches that we currently have now would not be spread so thin. And it's hard to go into each school and learn each different culture, learn the personalities of a school's culture and how to create impact. And actually, with our reconfiguration and them being more concentrated in certain spaces, would also help with probably more departmentalization of having actual teachers who can be focused on math, and right now not stretching them so thin as math, ELA, science, social studies teachers in all. And so it gives an opportunity for us to really look at the way we approach instruction, but also building the capacity of those serving our students.
Thank you. And just to clarify, when you said that, I think you used the word departmentalization of math, meaning that like within each school building, there would be more math teachers.
Yes, so right now, based on the size of schools, so for example, if you have a school with one teacher at each grade level, a smaller school, that teacher is traditionally forced to teach all subject areas. Because as an elementary certified teacher, you're certified to teach all of those subject areas. It doesn't mean that that's your number one strength in every subject area, but it does make sense when you have multiple teachers at a grade level where one can be the concentrated person that focuses on mathematics. One can be the concentrated person that focuses on English language arts. And so the strain is a little bit released, obviously, on that teacher, that is trying to build capacity in both areas versus one that can focus in and honing on that. And then when support comes in the form of coaches, now you're trying to navigate what the math coach told you about mathematics, what the ELA, what the literacy academic coach told you about English language arts, and just the human side of it, I would probably become a little confused.
So it would let teachers specialize a little bit more and specialize in alignment with their strengths.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Mr. Walker?
Thank you. So I'm gonna preface this by understanding that this is a new curriculum, but I'm just gonna say it, like, a 33% goal is just really hard for me to like stomach when we're talking about reading, but I get it. I get where we're at, and I get that the goal is continuous improvement. And so hopefully, you know, sometime down the road, we're talking about 60, 70% proficiency and not 30s, but we can keep working. But my question is, do we know, and have we talked to school districts that are doing this really well? And are we working with them to learn how they're doing it so that we can copy?
Yes, so it's interesting that you'd ask that question. So we have talked to some school districts. I wouldn't say that's doing it well, because I think even on the National Association of Education Progress, there's struggle across the country with math proficiency. What we have done too is we've engaged other folks in the community, even at the university level. I think Dr. Reed gave me a recommendation of someone that we've engaged with around math identity, who's doing some work with actually in one of our schools already around math identity and just building capacity. I think one of the challenging shifts for mathematics in our country now is that when we think about parental support and other support structures, it's just not the way we learn math. And so a lot of parents really struggle with trying to access and say, hey, let me help you, when the design of the curriculum is just completely different than the way we learn mathematics. Also, the expectations of what it means to be a mathematician now and the competencies have completely shifted over time. And I guess they will continue to shift as world competition continues to demand more of students and learners. And so we will continue to be challenged by that, but it is also a shift for those, even teachers, who have been taught a certain way and now have to embrace this new way of like, but I want to give them the answer. I mean, isn't math like right or wrong? Like, isn't it just like the answer is what matters and then you're good? And really what the research and what the expectations are, it's about the problem solving. It's about the discourse. It's about all of those things that translate into the skills that you want in workers right now. And being competent in mathematics is not just, and I'm dating myself by saying this, memorizing the multiplication tables on the back of a black and white composition notebook. I dated myself with that black and white composition notebook piece. But, you know, it's just a lot more. And it's not only about the answer, it's about the thinking and the problem solving. And so that in itself is a huge challenge. And so we continue to push forward. The game has changed with the standards for mathematical practices evolving now in space. It's created new demands for us in mathematics. And so, yes, the target has been moving and shifting, but we have to, as we say in schools, monitor and adjust accordingly.
Thank you. I mean, you can still buy the black composition notebooks. I don't know if they have the multiplication tables on the back anymore.
Well, the recommendation is no longer doing up to 12 times tables, it's just up to 10. Base 10 is the rule, and then everything else you can figure out after that.
You know, I mean, I think you make a good point, right? It's like so much of what we think about education as black and white is certainly not that, right? There's value in getting the answer right, but there's also value in understanding the process and knowing why you got the answer wrong and figuring out how to not make that mistake again, right? So we can teach multiple kind of lessons, I think, in that math equation, and I mean, and then teachers need to be able to like help students understand, like, yes, we're teaching you math, but we're also teaching you this, right? We're teaching you the critical thinking, the problem solving, the understanding where you went wrong, and how to get back on track, understanding what questions to ask, right? And I think as we continue to shift, we haven't talked about homework policy in a while, but but as we continue to think about how we use homework as a tool to help kids make mistakes and then learn through those mistakes to get to how to solve a problem, hopefully correctly, but more so just how to solve a problem. You know, as a leader of people, right, sometimes it's not about getting the right answer, it's about helping people realize where they went wrong so that they can figure out how to not do that again and then get on the right track. And so it's just a different way of thinking. So I appreciate the effort that's going into it. And then my last comment is on the last point that Director Silk asked about, which was, you know, we continue and we will continue to catch a lot of heat and flack for what we're trying to do to reconfigure our district to make it possible for education to be great for all of our kids. But that doesn't change the fact that our teachers need to have resources and time and space to learn. And the fact that we have teachers that are teaching multiple subjects more often than we would like them to speaks to the fact that, like, they're just stressed out. And I talked with a gentleman last night who told me, he said his daughter got into Kappa, and he said, we feel really lucky that she got into Kappa. And I said, what if we created a district where you didn't have to feel lucky that your kid got into one school versus another? And I think when we think about not just math, but reading, science, safety, healthy lunches, right? Gym, art, all of those things. You know, we have to think with the bigger picture in mind. So I appreciate what we're doing here specifically with math, but appreciate just the overall vision for what our future can look like if we continue to walk this path together. So thank you for that.
If I could just add one more, and that's probably one of the stronger purposes in staying the course. Because change is hard, it can be challenging, but we have to stay the course around these things like problem solving. And just a footnote on homework, that's exactly why homework should be issued and used. For the teacher to be able to see, did my teaching reach? But more importantly, what are the challenges that this student is having that's not connecting the dots? And homework often is a time where you can make those connections and see, oh, this student just didn't understand this part. If I can fix this part, this will make sense for this student. But if it's used just to sort of penalize and whether you did it or not, and kind of just do a check on if the paper is complete, it's lost its purpose. It's lost its value, and it's lost the goal.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. The first of which is, could you explain to me what a math walk is? And does it have anything to do with line dancing?
So it has some pieces of line dancing because it's certainly boots on the ground, but it may not have all the fans unless you're in a warm building. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm going to let our executive director of K-12 STEM provide a more robust answer to that. Lindsay Smith.
Hello, thank you for that question. So we conduct math walks 3 times a year. It's boots on the ground, as Dr. Walters shared. They're classroom visitations that are not connected to teacher evaluations. So the purpose of our math walks is to assess curriculum implementation, and we use a variety of tools to do that. Some of the indicators are around just looking for are we using the new curriculum or the actual physical materials in the classrooms and being used? And then other indicators are around things like, are teachers using that problem-based design structure? Are we teaching for problem solving? We're looking for our kids, do they have the opportunity to talk with each other about mathematics? What kind of tools are they using in the classroom? And then we compile all of that data and we share it out district-wide. Just, here are the trends that we're seeing. We're growing in these areas. We could grow some more in these areas. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes,
Yeah?
it does. It
Great.
does. And who conducts the math walks?
Yep, our math coordinators and math coaches conduct the math walks. We also sometimes invite the building leaders if they're able to attend, but we're pretty clear that, these are non-evaluative, and it really is about assessing curriculum implementation and figuring out what we can do to improve based on the data that we're seeing.
Thank you. And then, I don't mean to go down a rabbit hole. Do other teachers ever, are there peer math walks?
That does happen in some buildings. So it's not a district-wide practice at this point. This is the first year that we're trying this model out with the new curriculum. And so on the official math walks that are used to collect that district-wide data, we have not invited teachers along. But there are some buildings that have taken that tool and they're using it in PLCs with teachers. They're having teachers reflect on it for themselves and for their teams. And some of those peer visits have happened as a result. Yep.
Great, thank you. And my other question revolves around, we're talking a lot about what's happening in third grade. So can you talk a little bit about what's happening K to 2 and then 4 to 12 in math?
So I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay because she actually, Ms. Smith, because she actually had some data, but I didn't want her to include it in this presentation because the focus was on third grade, but she's been looking at implementation, professional learning impact, curriculum fidelity, that word again, just to get a sense of that. So she can share some of that information. We just didn't include it because the focal point was on third grade. But go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Absolutely, thank you.
So we conduct those math walks for everybody that's using the new curriculum, kindergarten through 8th grade. And so we do have data across the board, and we've compared. So we are improving in all of those areas, K through 8. But you can tell that third grade is the focus because in almost every single indicator, third grade has the highest usage, the highest implementation, and even the highest growth across the indicators. So all of the strategies that we've been implementing for third grade, we are also offering to K-8. So we've had curriculum-based professional learning and unit unpacking sessions offered for all grades. But because of the focus priority on third grade and shifting just the third grade to those half days, we haven't seen the attendance increase that we have for third grade. Same with, the math norms. Yes, we were able to review those in person with the third grade teachers, but they're really K-8 math norms, and they're available for anybody and everybody to use. So we are making efforts, but the progress is slower with the other grades because we haven't been able to maintain the same level of focus and concentration. Yep.
And these norms are also used in teaching algebra?
Not yet. So that's some of the work for the curriculum writing team this summer for high school. The curriculum in high school is a little bit different, and I think at that point you're really thinking about mathematics to see the world and change the world, and so I think some of the math norms might shift to reflect that. So.
Thank you. Thanks. And I will say again that I am a recovering high school English teacher who has become a math evangelist. I think that our focus on mathematics K to 12 is going to push practice. You can't tell, I would never belittle the humanities. That's my love. And I know that if we get really good at teaching math, we're really good at teaching. It's just harder. And so my final question is just revolves around, we're looking at math identity for young people. Do we ever look at math identity for teachers? when we have, like, most of our teachers are women, and sexism, many don't consider themselves math people. And so, are we looking at the math identity sort of work with teachers?
So what I would say is, we hope that the work that we're doing to impact students rubs off with a belief system for the adults serving the children. Because it's hard to put on the face that you're a math teacher when you don't believe that you're a strong mathematician. I mean, I can't claim to be a quality musician if I can't deliver on that. And it's the same thing in math or you being a writer. And so the hope is, although we haven't directly said, hey, you need to quit saying that you're not good in math if you're teaching math. However, these strategies that we're implementing and pushing forward into our classrooms, we would hope that that would translate to our teachers and their identity as mathematicians. Because if not, it's a disconnect and it's a conflict.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Sylvia's really
I
annoyed with
take
me.
exception to that about women, because some people also said the same, people of color like this, and I would take exception to that. And I know very hard how much, let me just say this, my kids learned math, okay, in my classroom, and because everybody needed to learn, and I take exception to that female stuff. It's the same thing as somebody want to say women don't do science well. Absolutely incorrect. So that's why we're here, to break all those generalities, because it's not true. And we will continue to work through that to make sure that that's correct.
My comment wasn't that women don't do math well. My comment is simply that going through school, when you look at most math teachers, and especially upper-level math teachers, they're men. And there is a gender difference in how people feel, whether or not they're math people, whether or not they're mathematicians, all of those things. There are gender differences. So I'm not saying women can't do math. Obviously, women can do math very well, just as well as anyone else. I'm saying that the opportunities, the socialization, how we identify as math people, that there are gender differences there, not because of ability, but because of culture. Like my comment was sexism. There we go. Any other questions? Anybody else want to yell at me? Other questions online? Nope. Okay, well, if that's it, there are no other questions. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Walters, and everyone get home safely.